At 4:47 in the morning, the fuel island outside Joplin, Missouri, is washed in white fluorescent light. One tractor looks like it came straight from a showroom. Its paint is bright, its hood is shaped for fuel economy, and its cab is filled with screens. The owner-operator climbing down from it has a warranty, a comfortable bunk, adaptive cruise control, and a service department that can read a fault code before the truck reaches the shoulder. Beside it sits a roughly 20-year-old factory truck built before diesel particulate filters became standard. The chrome is cloudy, the paint has faded around the door handles. There is a dark mark beneath the engine, and the driver keeps one hand on a coffee cup and the other on the hood. The newer driver points at his dashboard. "If that warning light comes on, the truck tells me what is wrong," he says. "If something major fails, the warranty covers it. I lose less time guessing." Then the older driver turns the key. The engine fires with a hard, familiar rumble. Not quiet, not refined, familiar. He listens for 3 seconds. "That belt is getting loose," he says. "It will make it through this run, but I will replace it before the next one." He knows because he has heard that sound before. He knows which hose fails first. He knows which sensor is worth replacing and which one is better tested before money is spent. He knows the repair shop 2 exits away that will take his call at 6 in the morning instead of putting the truck at the bottom of a dealer's schedule. Neither driver is pretending the older truck is newer than it is. The old truck can lose to the new one in fuel economy. It may have a rougher ride, fewer safety systems, and a cab that demands more attention every morning. Depending on where it works, it may also face emissions rules that restrict certain cities, ports, or dedicated freight lanes. But the newer tractor carries a fixed payment every month. Thousands of dollars can leave the owner's account before the truck hauls a single load. The payment does not care whether freight is strong. It does not care whether the driver is sick, whether a customer pays late, or whether the truck spends 3 days waiting for a specialized part. The older tractor may have little or no payment left. That does not make it free. A major engine repair can erase months of savings. A failed transmission can turn a profitable week into a debt problem. A truck that sits in a repair bay still has insurance, permits, and personal bills attached to it. The old machine may avoid a monthly note, but it replaces that note with uncertainty. That is why this decision is not really about chrome, comfort, or whether a truck looks impressive at the fuel island. It is a business decision made by someone whose income stops when the wheels stop turning. A late model truck offers systems designed to prevent failures, diagnose them, and keep the operation within a dealer network. A pre-diesel particulate filter truck offers mechanical simplicity, broad familiarity, and the possibility of fixing a problem without connecting the truck to a computer or waiting for a manufacturer-approved part. Both advantages are real. So are the bills attached to both. Owner-operators do not get paid based on the model year on the hood. They get paid for delivering a load on time with enough money left over after fuel, insurance, maintenance, taxes, and the truck itself. The newer operator is buying predictability through a payment and a warranty. The older operator is buying control while accepting the risk that control can become a very expensive repair. And that leaves the question sitting between these two trucks: is a factory, pre-diesel, particulate filter truck genuinely the more profitable and reliable choice, or does its apparent simplicity merely move the bill into repairs, downtime, and restricted routes? If the older truck is not just nostalgia, where exactly is the advantage, and can it survive the costs of a missed load? The answer begins with a distinction that gets buried under the words old and new. The diesel particulate filter was not a failed experiment. It was a response to a real problem: fine soot. Coming from diesel exhaust, the filter traps that particulate matter, and the engine periodically raises exhaust temperature so the soot can be burned away. That change dramatically reduced diesel particulate emissions. For the public, it was a major environmental improvement. For the operator, it created a new layer between combustion and the road. Now the truck depended on a filter, sensors, temperature, exhaust flow, and a control system working together. On a long highway run, that process can stay almost invisible. On a truck that idles, runs short distances, or develops one bad sensor, it can become a warning light, reduced power, and a trip to a shop. That does not make the filter the villain. It makes the filter part of the operating cost. I'm going to examine this as a business decision, not a truck show argument. We will separate the 2007 particulate filter transition from the later systems that added selective catalytic reduction and diesel exhaust fluid. Then we will put a dollar value on downtime instead of treating it as a vague inconvenience. A truck sitting in a repair bay for 2 days is not simply waiting. It is losing revenue while insurance, permits, parking, and debt continue running in the background. From there, we will test the older truck honestly. We will look at fuel consumption, age-related failures, parts and labor, inspection exposure, and the routes that truck cannot legally serve. California access matters because a low-cost truck that cannot enter the freight market you need is not low cost. Maintenance history will matter just as much. A documented engine with consistent oil changes, clean service records, and verified repairs can be a better business tool than a newer truck with unknown abuse. But a neglected older chassis can turn every apparent saving into a delayed bill. The year on the title will not tell us that story. The condition of the machine will then, we will reduce both choices to the same per-mile equation. Revenue, fuel, fixed payment, maintenance, downtime, insurance, taxes, and the cost of keeping the truck legally employed. That is where the common assumption starts to fail. People say newer trucks are more profitable because they use less fuel. They say older trucks are more profitable because they have fewer emissions components. Both statements are incomplete. A newer truck can save fuel and still lose its margin to financing, specialized repairs, and a missed load. A pre-diesel particulate filter truck can avoid certain aftertreatment failures and still lose its advantage through fuel burn, age-related breakdowns, and restricted routes. Profit does not come from a model year. It comes from matching the truck's costs and capabilities to the work that truck can actually perform. A pre-diesel particulate filter truck can be a smart tool for an owner-operator with cash reserves, a compatible route, and verified maintenance. It can be a trap for someone who needs California freight, depends on every week's gross revenue, or has no reserve when the transmission or engine demands attention. The useful question is not whether emissions equipment is good or bad. The question is whether its added complexity buys enough fuel economy, compliance, safety, and uptime to justify the money it consumes. Before the ledger makes sense, we need to understand what changed under the hood in 2007 and why engine model year matters more than the date printed on the cab. The line was not painted across the hood. It was printed on a small emissions label attached to the engine. For highway heavy-duty diesel engines certified to model year 2007, the Environmental Protection Agency reduced the allowable particulate matter to 0.01 grams per brake horsepower hour. That was roughly a 90% reduction from the earlier limit. The rule did not order every manufacturer to use one identical part. It set the limit so low that a wall-flow diesel particulate filter became the practical answer for most highway heavy-duty engines. That is the actual line in the exhaust. Before it, much of the soot produced during combustion passed through the exhaust system and out of the tailpipe after it. That soot had to be captured, managed, and burned inside the truck. Exhaust passes through porous filter walls. Gas moves through. Soot stays behind. When the soot load rises, the engine and exhaust controls raise the temperature high enough to burn that soot away through regeneration. Soot can burn, ash cannot. Ash created by engine oil and other materials remains inside the filter, which is why a filter can work correctly for years and still eventually require cleaning or replacement. The duty cycle determines how visible that process becomes. A truck pulling a heavy load on the interstate creates enough exhaust heat to help complete regeneration while moving. A truck that idles for hours makes short trips, starts cold, or spends most of its day lightly loaded, produces much less heat. The control system then has to create that heat by adjusting fuel and airflow or ask the driver to perform a parked regeneration. Interrupt that process often enough, and the soot load continues rising. A pressure sensor can report restriction, a temperature sensor can prevent regeneration from starting, a damaged filter can create excessive back pressure. The engine may still be capable of pulling a trailer, but the control system can reduce power to protect the emissions equipment. That is the mechanical reason a factory truck built before the diesel particulate filter can feel simpler. It does not have the wall flow filter. It does not have the filter-specific pressure monitoring, temperature monitoring, and regeneration strategy built around that filter. It may still have exhaust gas recirculation, electronic fuel controls, a variable geometry turbocharger, and a diesel oxidation catalyst. It is not free of emissions equipment, and it is not purely mechanical. It simply removes one heat-sensitive chain from the exhaust system. That difference matters because fewer components do not mean fewer things can ever break. It means fewer components belong to one particular failure chain. A pre-diesel particulate filter engine does not need filter ash service. It does not need a diesel particulate filter regeneration event. It does not have filter restriction diagnostics or filter temperature sensors. If it predates the later nitrogen oxide systems, it does not need diesel exhaust fluid, a dosing pump, or selective catalytic reduction hardware either. Those are real parts. They can crack, clog, misread pressure, lose electrical communication, or demand attention at the worst possible time. But there is a date trap that catches buyers before any of those parts are inspected. The chassis model year is not automatically the engine emissions model year. During the transition, a truck with a model year 2007 cab could carry an engine certified under an earlier emissions standard. Two trucks with the same chassis model year could also have different engine configurations depending on the manufacturer, the production timing, or an engine replacement. The title, grille, hood badge, and seller's description are not enough. The reliable evidence is the engine emissions label, the engine serial number, and the certification information tied to that engine. The factory pre-diesel particulate filter designation belongs to the engine that creates the exhaust, not the cab that carries it. Then another important transition arrived around model year 2010. The focus expanded beyond particulate matter. Nitrogen oxide limits became tighter, and many manufacturers added selective catalytic reduction to the existing exhaust system. The two systems handle different pollutants. The diesel particulate filter captures soot. Selective catalytic reduction treats nitrogen oxides. A separate tank stores diesel exhaust fluid, and a pump and injector send that fluid into the exhaust stream. A catalyst then helps convert the nitrogen oxides primarily into nitrogen and water. Now, the truck has another tank, another pump, another injector, additional sensors, and another system monitoring fluid level and quality. Low fluid, contaminated fluid, or a fault in the dosing system can eventually lead to reduced power or restricted speed. So a truck from the 2010 era is not simply a newer version of a truck from 2006. It may carry the diesel particulate filter and the selective catalytic reduction system at the same time. The exact configuration varies by engine and manufacturer, which is why the engine label matters more than a broad phrase such as emissions truck. That distinction changes the buying conversation. Factory truck built before the diesel particulate filter can avoid a specific group of expenses and interruptions. A truck with only a diesel particulate filter has a different service profile. A later truck with both systems adds another path to a warning light, another fluid system, and another reason the truck may need a shop. The older truck has not eliminated maintenance. It has removed some after-treatment maintenance and left the buyer with an older machine. That means the cost can move somewhere else. It can appear as worn injectors, a tired turbocharger, cooling system repairs, leaking seals, wiring faults, a clutch, or a transmission. A simpler exhaust system does not rescue an engine that has been neglected for years. The duty cycle decides which risk matters more. A long-haul truck gives modern after-treatment the heat and operating time it needs. A short-haul or high-idle truck asks more of the regeneration system. A pre-diesel particulate filter truck avoids that demand, but may consume more fuel and carry more age-related wear. And legal access still matters. A truck that cannot enter the freight lane you need is not a useful asset for that lane, no matter how easy it is to repair. So the 2007 line did not divide good trucks from bad trucks. It divided two different failure maps. On one side, the exhaust system depends on heat, pressure readings, temperature readings, and eventual ash service. On the other, those specific systems are missing, but years, fuel consumption, mechanical wear, and route eligibility become more important. The question is not which truck has fewer parts, it is which parts you can afford to maintain and which failure can stop your business. That extra hardware only becomes a business disadvantage when it turns into a bill or a delay, which is where owner-operator economics changes the story. At 3:20 on a Thursday afternoon, a tractor on Interstate 40 near Amarillo starts leaving a thin green line across the pavement. The driver pulls onto the shoulder. Coolant is running down the side of the engine. The trailer is loaded, the delivery appointment is the next morning, and the return load is already booked for Friday. The repair is a water pump and a belt. The invoice is $1,100. That is only the beginning. The truck needs a tow to a repair shop. The shop cannot install the part until the next morning. The driver pays for a hotel, meals, and transportation between the hotel and the yard. By the time the truck is ready, the delivery appointment has been moved, the Friday load has been given to another carrier, and the driver has spent 2 days producing no revenue. The repair bill was $1,100. The business interruption can easily pass $3,500 before counting the truck payment, insurance, permits, and other expenses that continue while the tractor sits still. That is the part people miss when they compare repair invoices. A failure has two prices. The first price is what the shop charges to put the truck back together. The second is everything the truck fails to earn while it is unavailable. For a single truck operator, those two prices are connected. The tractor is not sitting beside another tractor that can take over the load. It is the tractor that pays the mortgage, the insurance, the fuel bill, and often the driver's household expenses. If the truck normally produces $1,200 in gross revenue during a working day, losing 1 day removes that opportunity. Losing 2 days removes 2 opportunities. The operator still has payments due on both days, and the lost revenue does not always stop with the missed load. A late delivery can force a rescheduling fee. A broker may need to find another carrier. A receiver may refuse the appointment and push it to the next available window. The backhaul disappears because the first load was not completed on time. Then there is the less visible cost. While the truck is waiting for a part, the operator is not available for the next phone call. A regular customer may call another carrier. A favorable lane may fill up. A broker who had been offering good freight may stop calling after 2 missed commitments. None of those losses appear on the repair invoice. A large fleet experiences the same mechanical failure differently. If one tractor breaks down in Dallas, the company may move the trailer to another tractor. It may send another driver. It may use equipment from a nearby terminal. The customer sees a delay, but the fleet still has options. An owner-operator usually has one tractor, one trailer, and one person trying to keep both moving. There is no spare unit waiting behind the shop door. That changes the definition of a good repair. The cheapest repair is not always the best repair. The best repair is the one that returns the truck to profitable work with the least total damage. A $4,000 repair completed in one afternoon can be less expensive than a $2,000 repair that leaves the truck disabled for 2 days. That is why downtime becomes central to the pre-diesel particulate filter decision. A simpler exhaust system can remove one category of failure and service. It can also make some problems easier for an independent shop to identify and repair. But the advantage only matters if the older truck is mechanically sound enough to keep moving. If that same truck has worn injectors, a failing turbocharger, a weak cooling system, or a transmission that is already showing symptoms, the savings from avoiding later exhaust equipment can disappear quickly. The question is not whether an older truck can be repaired. Almost any truck can be repaired with enough money. The question is how often it needs repair, how long the repair takes, and whether the operator has enough cash to survive the time between the failure and the next paying load. I keep coming back to one observation: owner-operators do not get paid based on the model year on the hood. They get paid when the equipment completes profitable work. A newer truck that spends 2 days waiting for diagnosis. Parts or authorization is not earning a premium simply because it is newer. An older truck that completes the same load, reaches the same receiver, and returns for the next load may produce the better business result, even if its purchase price was lower and its odometer showed more miles. But that does not make every pre-diesel particulate filter truck profitable. The route still matters. If the freight requires access to a restricted clean air area, a port, or a customer with strict equipment requirements, the older truck may be unable to take the load. If it burns substantially more fuel, the operating costs may erase the repair advantage. If parts are difficult to find in the lanes you run, a simple design does not guarantee a short repair. This is where the calculation has to become specific. Look at the freight you actually haul, look at the places where the truck actually operates. Then ask what a breakdown would cost there, not in a seller's parking lot. How far is the nearest shop that understands the engine? How quickly can common parts arrive? Can the truck be repaired without removing the cab or waiting for a factory diagnostic process? What is the normal gross revenue for one working day? What happens if the repair takes 2 days instead of 2 hours? Those answers matter more than the age printed on the title. The older truck is not valuable because it is old. It is valuable when its lower complexity, repair access, and route eligibility give the owner more control over the hours that produce income.